Hello to all the innies and outies out there, and welcome to today's new Severance video. Last week I introduced these separate theory videos that highlight you all's comments, and we're bringing it back, and there's a lot to discuss. We're talking about Mr. Milkshake, we're talking about Mark being so important, the discovery of what happened to Gemma's body, and of course we're talking about if it's Helly or Helena. So let's get our pineapples ready and discuss some major talking points from episode 2 of season 2 of Severance. So kicking this off, last week we started with discussing all of Milkshake's lies about the 5 months having passed, the refiners being fired and not wanting to return, and that they were all famous and they actually made a difference. But after learning that the events of season 1's finale were only a few days removed from episodes 1 and 2 of this new season, I'm gonna be honest with you all, I believe Milkshake really does deserve his new position because he's truly a company man and he definitely deserves the employee of the year. Let me explain. Not only did he have to fire the team, besides obviously Helly and Mark, more on Mark not being fired later on, but he also had to hire new people last minute as replacements for the MDR department only to fire them days later. The man then had to deliver several apology pineapple gift baskets on his damn motorcycle. Now if he didn't do this himself, he had to hire animators from, I don't know, Wallace and Gromit to make the Luminous listening video, which included Keanu Reeves' voice as the building, but he also had to make up a fake newspaper all within a weekend's timeline. Look, I feel like after all that, I completely understand why he was so mad seeing Cobell's name on his computer screen. Now, I still don't trust Milkshake, aka Milkshake, but I found his recent comments about if he views himself as a villain in this Variety interview very interesting. When the question came up about if he views himself as a villain, he said, I quote, "I do not. I think he's incredibly complicated. The circumstances are complex, and as the season carries forth, I believe the audience will start to see that unfold a bit." With everything we've seen of Milkshake so far, do you all see him as a villain of the show or one of the villains, or do you see him as a character that does have some layers and complexity and maybe he's just misunderstood? Do you believe that we'll see that he's maybe a good person that's stuck in a difficult situation? I'm such a big fan of the actor and the character, and I'm excited to see more of Milkshake this season, but with that said, let's get into some of the biggest questions and theories after episode 2. Let's start with this one. Why is Mark so important? In episode 2, we really got a better understanding of how Mark is key to this particular new project, Cold Harbor, and it appears that he can't be fired, at least for now. In episode 2, we heard Helena make the point that he needs his team to complete the project, as she says,
"We don't need chemistry. We need Mark S. back to work.
Go on ahead.
Long enough to complete Cold Harbor."
Now here's what we know so far about Project Cold Harbor. It seems like Cold Harbor is a very important project that Mark S needs to complete, and based on the final seconds of the season 2 premiere episode, it's got something to do with Gemma. Episode 2 really did show us how important Mark is to this project. I mean, we even saw Milkshake having to bring out the big guns with the pineapple, but also he made it sound like if he leaves, he's essentially unalive in his innie, and we know that death is a triggering point for Mark, but also Milkshake points out the fact that he'll also be ending the romance that his innie's involved with. Milkshake also used Gemma and Mark grieving to bring him back to the fold, and as I mentioned earlier, he's so important that he even got the board to bring his entire team back, including Helly R. More on her in a minute, but again, the question is, why is he so special to this particular project? Now, I've seen and heard the online discussions and theories about how MDR is maybe refining memories and or personalities based on the 4 tempers, and is connected to the Severance implant people, for example, Miss Casey. But it remains to be seen, why does Mark have to be the one to do this particular job, but also it brings to mind, what exactly are the others doing? Whatever it is, it can't be as important, if important at all, because if it was, they would not have been so easily fired and replaced. Does having 4 employees in MDR represent the tempers themselves? Mark representing woe, defined as great sorrow or distress with the loss of Gemma. We have Irving, who represents maybe dread, the great fear of his paintings. You have Dylan representing frolic, representing cheerfulness. And then you have Helly, who represents malice, intention, or desire to do evil, which I would say her elevator stunt in season 1 falls in that category. Now, we recently got the new opening title sequence, which I did a breakdown for on the channel, which you all can check out. And as I mentioned in that video, there's a particular shot here where we see a car in the water. Could Cold Harbor be in reference to this car? Is it Cobell's car pointing towards her potential involvement in Gemma's accident? Now, if you want to hear more about that theory I just said, I shared that in my latest breakdown of episode 2, but the short version of that theory involves Cobell being responsible for Gemma's car accident that allegedly killed her. Let me know where you all are so far as where I'm at with Cole Harbor and what the other refiner's purpose is. Now, speaking of Gemma, after Mark confronted Cobell at the end of episode 2, I wonder if we'll see Outie Mark request to speak to his innie, or the reverse where his innie requests to speak to him, similar to what we saw Helly R and Helena do back in season 1. Now, I don't know if Outies can do that, make a request to speak to their innies, but even if they could, I would imagine Lumon would find some excuse to not make that happen. But I feel like there's a possibility that we'll see Outie Mark try to communicate with his innie to confirm if he's seen Gemma. Now, something that I did not catch in the latest episode, but some of you all pointed out in the comments section, and that was the reveal that Gemma's body was burnt in the accident. Let's talk about how Lumon could have found a way to mess with her alleged dead body. Taking a look at the comments that you all left, let's start with Anthony, who says, Mark said that if he identified the body, and he said if Rickon burnt, he would feel sad, etc. I think this implies that she died burned in the car crash, which could explain how Lumon managed to swap bodies or something. We have Amber's comments, who says, did no one catch how Mark was going off on his sister? He revealed that he had to identify his wife's burnt remains. This means that if Lumon was involved and wanted Gemma, they easily could have just kidnapped her and staged a car accident with some random burnt body. And here's the video of what they're referring to.
If Rickon died and his body burned, I'd be sad for you, but I wouldn't be affected.
Now, I think if this is to be true, that her body was found burned, that seems to be an easy way for Lumon to find a way to take Gemma and replace her with some Jane Doe. But again, that brings us back to the why. Now, I'm sticking with my theory that goes all the way back to season 1, and that's Gemma having some prior experience with Lumon without Mark's knowledge, and it's similar to Petey or Peggy from the Lexington letter. Gemma found out something about what Lumon is doing, and unfortunately she got caught, and Lumon took her and experimented on her, and Mark's also tied into all of this. So let me know if you all took his comments about Rickon as confirmation that Gemma's body was indeed burned, and if so, would that be the perfect cover-up for Lumon to take her and make her into Miss Casey? Now, last but not least, one of the biggest questions that carried over from episode 1 and made a bigger impact on episode 2, and that's if it's Helly R or Helena. First, I do want to bring up the fact that the new opening credits made a very big point to show us as an audience that at some point this season, Gemma and Helly or Helena will either cross paths, or they cross paths in the past, or we're going to see Mark going to have to choose between one of them. As the credits showed them multiple times, and this moment on the screen now really stood out to me, and that's them switching between one another while in the elevator that leads them to the testing floor. Will we see Helena try the reintegration process on herself at some point in the season, or will she help Mark save Gemma / Miss Casey by going down to the testing floor herself? Now, continuing the conversation about Helena, as of right now, which camp do you find yourself in after episode 2? Was Helena in the place of Helly after the team was reunited in episode 1? If so, this adds so much more to her character and her seeing her reacting to seeing Helly and Mark kiss. It just makes me remember Helena in season 1 telling Helly R that she wasn't a real person. Now fast forward, and I believe Helena is jealous of Helly R more so than the idea that she's pretending to be Helly on behalf of the company as some type of spy. Now, last week, I was 50-50 on the idea if it was Helena or Helly, but after episode 2, I am 95% sure that it is Helena, and not, again, for the reasons of her spying on the behalf of the company, but instead, as I mentioned and discussed more in depth in my episode 2 breakdown, I think she's wanted to experience what Helly R and Mark have in person. Let's take a look at what some of you all thought in the comments section. Now, you all can pause the video to read the entire comment here left by Meg, which, by the way, great things being said on this topic. But as they said, just focus on the first part here. I think Helena is alone and yearns for freedom from her duties as an Egan and likes to see an alternate version of her life while staying loyal to the company. Taking a look at this comment by Cassie, I wonder if this means a shift for Helena's character, because in the first season, she says Helly is not a person. However, she says her innie is a person.
I am a person. You are not.
Again, checking out my latest breakdown of episode 2 to hear my theory about Helena, but I agree with both of these comments here, and let's just go a little bit further into this very topic. Again, playing with the idea that she's wanting to have what Helly has, could we see Helena bringing Mark's innie to the outside world, and after hearing that his innies found love, could we see Mark's outie wanting to allow his innie to experience love on the outside of Lumon, almost like it's him allowing himself to love again, even if it's not his literal self, but another version of himself. Now, we obviously know Mark is still grieving, but we did see him going on a date in season 1 with Alexa and playing with the idea of opening his heart up in the outside world. And just sticking with this theory, what if we do see Helena pursuing Mark and she's seeing if their outies have any chemistry because their innies have their romance inside of Lumon? What if she goes to talk to Mark, sees there's some chemistry there, but secretly Mark's using her to get more information about what happened to Gemma? Now, before wrapping up this theory video, we have to talk about the most frequent comment that I saw in the comment section, and that was the scene towards the end of the episode involving Helena getting on the elevator and it not making any noise like the others did. Now, I don't think the show is playing games with us. I think they deliberately did not play that dinging noise because it is Helena that went down there and not Helly R. To me, I believe the importance behind a reveal like this is to maybe have any Mark experience the feeling of what outie Mark has, that's losing someone he loves, but having a version of them there, similar to the idea of Gemma being gone for outie Mark, but there's now Miss Casey. My thought being that any Mark believes that he's with Helly R, but instead she's theoretically gone, but she's been replaced by another version of herself in Helena. The pain of seeing the person physically there, but it's not really the person you fell in love with. To me, the idea behind the storyline would further prove that the innies are important, and the characters like Helena as Helly show how she doesn't have to have the pressures of being an Egan. You have someone like Mark who doesn't want to feel the pain after losing a loved one. You look at someone like Dylan who doesn't want to face the reality of living a life without confidence in himself, and obviously we have more to learn about Irving. For example, him already working at Lumon for 9 years but only being severed for 3 years. What I'm really getting at is the idea that these characters in these lives are essentially better in a certain perspective, and their outies are starting to get that. Now, personally, I don't think the show wants this whole Helena as Helly thing to be drawn out for most of the season. I think if not by episode 3, then probably by episode 4, that they're going to make the reveal that it's been Helena this whole time. And I wouldn't be surprised if she allows Helly R to return to see Mark or to help Mark complete his Cold Harbor file if he learns it has been Helena. But again, I can see Helena then going through the process of seeing if her and outie Mark have anything to explore romantically. You know what's funny? I was just rewatching episode 1 of season 1, and to think that both outie Mark and Helena have actually met before back in that episode 1 premiere, and it's funny because it involves a almost car accident. Now, I think that's a good place to end this week's theory video. So with that, share your thoughts about everything we discussed in this video, and please keep sharing your amazing theories and ideas in the comments for more videos like this. If you guys haven't already, check out my breakdown of the new opening title sequence, as well as my breakdown of episode 2, where we talked about Mr. Drummond, where we discussed Dylan's outie's life, and as well as who in the hell was Irving on the phone with. Now, I will see you all soon to discuss episode 3 later in the week. If this is your first time here, welcome. Consider hanging out longer and subscribing to the channel. And if you all want to show more support towards the channel, please consider joining the channel memberships. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll see you all on the next video. And remember,
Lumon is listening.